Right now, the smartest software engineers in Silicon Valley are spending billions of dollars trying to figure out how to make their software slower.
Yeah, slower, clunkier, and intentionally harder for you to use.
Exactly. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are looking at why adding friction back into your workday might be the only thing that saves your brain from generative AI.
It sounds totally counterintuitive, I know.
It really does.
Yeah.
But our mission here is to figure out how to master this massive transition happening in the workplace right now. Moving AI from just a simple utility into an active dynamic collaborator without losing your edge.
Right. And to really wrap our heads around the mechanics of this, we are drawing heavily from some fascinating research on cultivating what's called human AI fit for knowledge workers.
Yeah?
It fundamentally changes how we interact with our screens.
Okay, let's unpack this because I think a lot of us still look at AI the same way we look at like Microsoft Excel or a grammar checker.
Oh, absolutely.
We just think of it as another piece of utility software.
Which makes total sense, because historically, when a company rolled out new software, they relied on this concept formalized back in the 90s, task technology fit.
Right, the 90s model.
Yeah. The premise was super simple. A tool's features just need to align perfectly with a predefined task. If you have a nail, you buy a hammer.
Makes sense.
Right. The hammer doesn't change its shape depending on who swings it, and the task doesn't change either.
But generative AI completely breaks that model. I mean, working with traditional software is like using a toaster. You push a button, you get toast.
Yes.
Working with generative AI is like hiring an eager, highly caffeinated sous chef.
I love that analogy.
Right, because they might invent a brilliant new recipe for you, or they might confidently try to bake a shoe.
That is exactly it. And that sous chef dynamic exists because generative AI is inherently non-deterministic.
Non-deterministic.
Yeah, meaning if you put the exact same search query into a traditional database, you get the exact same output every single time.
Like the toaster.
Like the toaster. But if you give the exact same prompt to a generative AI system on a Tuesday, and then again on a Thursday, you might get two entirely different responses.
That is so true.
It adapts to your interaction history. It hallucinates. It tries to, anticipate your tone.
Right, so you can't just install it.
Right. What's fascinating here is that because of all that, you don't just install AI. You have to build a relationship with exactly how it operates. That is human AI fit.
Ah, okay.
It's an ongoing relational state based on how compatible the system is with your specific cognitive habits.
Okay, but if we're spending all this time building a relationship with our digital sous chefs, we have to ask what that trial and error actually costs us, in terms of time.
That's the big question.
Is it actually worth it? Because the hard data from the enterprise world is staggering. Right now, about 35% of enterprise knowledge workers are using these assistants regularly.
35%. Wow.
Yeah. And in software development, moderately skilled developers using AI coding assistants are seeing a 55% reduction in task completion time.
Cutting the work time in half is a massive leap. It really is.
It's huge.
And we are seeing similar numbers in content creation too, like drafting reports, writing marketing copy, or synthesizing emails. Field experiments are showing a solid 20 to 40% time savings there.
Okay, wait. I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because whenever a new technology comes out, people panic, right?
Yeah.
People made this exact same intellectual laziness argument when spell check and calculators were invented.
Oh, the classic calculator argument.
Exactly. Our middle school math teachers swore we wouldn't always have a calculator in our pocket.
And now we do.
We do. And
Yeah.
society didn't collapse. We didn't get dumber. We just did math faster.
Yeah.
So why should I believe AI drafting my proposals is any different?
It's a great point. But here's the difference. A calculator is deterministic. 2 plus 2 is always 4. An AI, on the other hand, might confidently tell you 2 plus 2 is 5 today because it hallucinated a connection between two completely unrelated data points.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And if you don't have the foundational skills to spot the error, you just accept it as truth. This brings up a critical psychological concept called cognitive load.
Okay, cognitive load.
When calculators were introduced, cognitive psychologist John Sweller did extensive research on this. He found that tools that reduce cognitive load too prematurely can actually stop you from developing foundational skills entirely.
So, if you never struggle through the actual mechanics of long division, you don't develop the underlying number sense to know when an answer just looks wrong.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That is precisely the danger we are facing now. In the professional world, if AI always solves the tricky formatting or the basic structural logic of a legal brief for a junior worker,
Yeah.
that worker never develops the deep, intuitive expertise required to handle complex, ambiguous cases where the AI inevitably fails. The heavy lifting is where the learning happens.
Wow. Which means we are setting up an entire generation of workers who know how to ask for an answer, but don't actually have the mental muscle to verify if the answer is any good.
And that leads directly to an even deeper trap. It's called automation bias.
Automation bias.
It's a well-documented psychological tendency for humans to favor suggestions from automated systems even when contradictory information is sitting right in front of them.
Really? Even if it's obviously wrong.
Yes. And the truly counterintuitive paradox here is that high human-AI fit can actually make automation bias much worse.
Wait, what? So the better I get along with my AI and the smoother it feels, the more danger my brain is in.
Think about how the brain works. We have our fast, automatic, intuitive thinking, often called System 1.
Okay.
And then we have our slower, more analytical, critical thinking, which is System 2.
Right, System 1 and System 2.
Exactly. When the human-AI fit is high, the interaction is incredibly smooth. The AI sounds like you. It structures things exactly the way you prefer to read them.
It feels like it just gets you.
Right. It feels highly polished and trustworthy. And because the interface is so frictionless, your brain defaults to that lazy System 1 autopilot.
Oh, I see.
You skim it, it looks plausible, and you completely skip the rigorous System 2 verification step. And this is happening right now in high-stakes environments like healthcare, legal research, and financial analysis.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about what that implies for technology design. I mean, Silicon Valley has spent the last 2 decades treating friction like the ultimate enemy.
Oh, 100%.
Right. One-click shopping, endless scrolling, seamless cloud syncing. The entire goal was to make sure you never had to stop and think about the tool you were using.
Make it invisible.
Exactly. And now,
Mhm.
because a frictionless AI interface literally puts our critical thinking to sleep, the smartest companies in the world are frantically engineering friction back into the workflow.
It is a total reversal of user interface design philosophy. It's wild.
It is.
Organizations are realizing that, sure, while you want a frictionless experience for like ordering a pizza online, you desperately need cognitive friction when you are generating a market analysis report or diagnosing a patient.
You need to be forced to think.
You have to artificially interrupt that System 1 autopilot.
So what does good friction actually look like in practice? Let's talk about Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, you can see this playing out right now in their financial analysis divisions. They use AI to digest massive amounts of market data and draft reports, but they implemented a strict human-in-the-loop protocol.
How does that work?
Well, analysts aren't physically allowed to just take an AI-generated report, skim it, and hit send. The workflow forces them to perform claim-by-claim validation.
Wow. Claim by claim.
They have to explicitly verify the factual assertions and physically link the cited sources before the content is cleared for use.
So it's less like a speed bump and more like driving a manual transmission instead of an automatic.
That's a great way to put it.
You know, you can't just zone out with your knee on the steering wheel. The machine forces you to physically engage with the gears to keep moving forward. It keeps your brain on the road.
Exactly.
And I know the Cleveland Clinic is doing something similar that takes this psychological interruption even further.
Oh, the Cleveland Clinic is a masterclass in what we call a cognitive forcing function.
A cognitive forcing function.
Yeah. They use clinical decision support protocols for AI-augmented diagnosis, but here's the trick. The software interface physically will not show the doctor the AI's diagnostic recommendations until the attending physician has explicitly documented their own independent clinical reasoning first.
Oh, that is brilliant.
Isn't it?
You are staring at a blank box, and the AI button is completely grayed out. You have to type out your own medical logic first.
What's fascinating here is the psychological anchor it creates. If you see the AI's diagnosis first, your brain anchors to that suggestion. Your critical thinking is reduced to just nodding along.
Just going, yeah, sure, that looks right.
Exactly. But by forcing the doctor to commit to their own logic first, it preserves their professional judgment as the primary authority.
Right.
Once they hit save, the AI chimes in. The doctor is then evaluating the AI against their own mental anchor rather than the other way around. The AI is relegated to a second opinion, not the first drafter.
And this kind of friction doesn't just have to be a rigid locked door blockade either.
Yeah.
Even on a daily software level, Microsoft is doing this with Copilot.
Oh, yeah.
They use what developers call progressive prompting frameworks. Instead of a one-shot interface like a traditional search engine where you type a query and get a final static answer, the interface is designed to force an iterative dialogue.
I guess talks back.
Right, it actively suggests refinements. It asks you about your constraints. It treats the very first output as a rough draft and forces you into a back-and-forth conversation before you get the final product.
And by forcing that multi-turn refinement, you are actively building your mental model of how the AI interprets language. And the AI is getting much better context about your specific needs. It maintains your cognitive engagement throughout the entire process.
But, if I'm a listener right now, and I'm thinking about trying to use these progressive prompting frameworks at my job, there's a big elephant in the room.
Okay, what's that?
If we are forced to drive a manual transmission, we are going to stall out a few times.
Sure.
If my company wants me to experiment with AI, but I'm constantly generating weird errors or spending 20 minutes having a back-and-forth dialogue with a chatbot just to try and get a quarterly report formatted correctly,
Right.
how do I know my boss isn't tracking all my terrible first drafts? If I'm terrified of my manager looking at my prompt history and thinking I'm stupid or slow, I'm not going to experiment. I'm just going to use the AI secretly or not use it at all.
You've hit on the core of why most corporate AI rollouts completely fail.
Really?
Yeah, you cannot mandate that employees build a dynamic relationship with a non-deterministic system if they are operating in a culture of surveillance and fear.
That makes total sense.
To build human AI fit, you have to engineer psychological safety. Structured experimentation protocols are absolutely required.
And I know Deloitte has built a really interesting model for this. They created a dedicated sandbox environment for their consultants.
Yes.
It's this internal space, completely disconnected from actual client deliverables or billable hours. They run weekly, low-stakes challenges where consultants practice specific AI tasks.
And the best part of that is the error library.
The error library, yes.
It is essentially a highly visible museum of AI failures. They deliberately document common AI hallucinations, logical inconsistencies, and wildly inappropriate tones that the system generates.
Think about the psychological relief of that.
Oh, it's huge.
If you are a junior consultant and you see that a senior partner's prompt just caused the AI to confidently invent a fake tax law, it normalizes failure.
Exactly.
It sends a very clear message. Look, the machine is flawed. It messes up, and that's expected. Your job isn't to generate perfect output on the first try. Your job is to spot the flaws.
They also conduct peer review sessions where teams compare their different prompting approaches. And the internal data strongly indicates that consultants who go through this sandbox program produce much higher quality deliverables than those who just sit through a standard technical training PowerPoint.
Because they've actually played with it.
Right. Because they aren't afraid of the tool, they actively learn its blind spots.
But that still leaves the tracking aspect. Because even if I'm in a sandbox, if my manager is logging every keystroke, I'm still going to be anxious about looking inefficient.
Well, this is where platform governance comes into play. Salesforce has been a pioneer in this area.
What are they doing?
They established a strict AI governance framework that legally walls off individual AI interaction data from management.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it explicitly prohibits using interaction data for performance evaluations or disciplinary actions.
Wait, so they collect the data to improve the software, but the managers can't see it?
Correct. The system aggregates and anonymizes the data to improve the AI's underlying models, but manager access to an individual worker's prompts, revision patterns, or time-on-task metrics is completely restricted.
That is so smart.
Because think about it, if you measure an employee on how fast they can get an AI to spit out a result, you are heavily incentivizing automation bias.
You are basically begging them to skip the cognitive friction
Yeah.
and just accept the first draft.
Exactly. To counteract this, Salesforce realized that performance evaluations themselves have to fundamentally shift to emphasize quality over speed. You reward the worker for the meticulous verification of the output, not the raw speed of the generation.
That is a massive paradigm shift. You're basically telling corporate management, stop acting like a stopwatch and start acting like an editor.
Beautifully said.
But this brings us to another huge hurdle. We've talked about the individual worker slowing down. We've talked about building safe sandboxes. But generative AI capabilities literally change overnight.
They do. It's exhausting.
A new software patch drops, and suddenly the AI can do video analysis or write in a completely different coding language. Relying on individual workers to just figure this out in isolation is completely unsustainable. So how does the entire organization evolve its collective mind?
The era of the one-time afternoon training seminar in a stuffy conference room is completely dead.
Thank goodness.
Right. Organizations are moving toward what is called distributed sense-making.
What does distributed sense-making actually mean, in a corporate setting?
It means that when an environment is ambiguous and shifting rapidly, a small group of executives at the top can't possibly figure out all the best practices and hand them down.
They don't know any better than the frontline workers.
Exactly. You have to rely on the collective intelligence of the entire workforce to make sense of the new reality together in real time.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, for instance, Accenture has completely abandoned the one-and-done training model. They invest in multi-tier, role-specific training that includes deep dives into ethical reasoning and bias detection. And they mandate continuous annual refreshers because the capabilities of the technology shift so radically every few months.
And IBM is taking this collective intelligence idea even further. I know they created an internal prompt engineering guild.
Yes.
It isn't a top-down mandate. They actively pull workers from across different business units like marketing, engineering, HR, to create a living, breathing repository of effective prompts.
It's so smart.
And they treat these prompts the way software developers treat code. They use version control and A/B testing frameworks.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, version control is like having a shared Google Doc for prompts, but you can see exactly who changed what word
Yeah.
and whether adding the word analyze instead of summarize made the AI perform 10% better or 20% worse.
Oh, that's amazing.
It allows the entire company to track the evolution of a command. They are literally crowdsourcing the human AI fit.
And you see this democratization happening at Unilever as well. They implemented worker advisory panels, giving frontline supply chain and manufacturing workers a direct voice in AI safety and automation decisions.
That's real participatory design.
Exactly. The people whose daily routines are actually being disrupted by the AI are the ones helping to design the workflows.
But this raises an important question about the individual.
Oh,
If the workflows are constantly changing and your primary daily skill is now collaborating with the AI rather than just executing the raw task yourself, it forces us to completely redefine our professional identity.
that's heavy.
Your value is no longer just the volume of outputs you produce because the AI can easily mass produce outputs.
What does it mean to be a professional in this environment?
Your professional identity has to pivot. It becomes your editorial judgment, your verification skills, your ethical reasoning, and your specific ability to collaborate with these non-deterministic systems.
The soft skills,
Yeah.
the critical thinking.
Yes. And the most forward-thinking organizations are beginning to formally recognize this. McKinsey completely revised its consultant career pathway.
What did they change?
They now explicitly recognize AI collaboration skills, which includes the critical evaluation of AI outputs and complex prompt engineering as core professional competencies required for promotion.
Wow. Required for promotion.
It is written directly into the criteria for moving up in the firm. It signals to the entire workforce that adapting to AI is a capability worthy of formal professional recognition and financial reward.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We started by asking a really uncomfortable question. Are you actually getting better at your job, or are you just outsourcing your thinking?
Right.
What this deep dive reveals is that getting the most out of AI isn't about raw productivity at all. It isn't about finding a magic tool that does your job for you so you can go home early.
Definitely not.
It's about building a dynamic, highly alert relationship with a machine that is constantly shifting.
It requires embracing healthy cognitive friction. It requires organizations to build sandboxes for safe experimentation, free from surveillance.
Yeah.
And it requires completely rewiring how we evaluate and reward professional success, prioritizing meticulous judgment over raw speed.
You definitely do not want a frictionless slide into automation bias. You want those cognitive speed bumps. You want the manual transmission that forces your brain to stay engaged on the road.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, I want to turn it back over to you for one final thought. We've talked a lot today about how human-AI fit is this delicate mutual adaptation. But what happens when the ground completely shifts underneath us?
It is arguably the most critical question we face moving forward. If human AI fit is truly built on mutual adaptation over time, and this ability to fit with the machine becomes your single most valuable professional competency,
Yeah.
What happens when the AI system you've spent 6 months perfectly syncing with gets a massive fundamental software update overnight? Do you have to rebuild your professional identity from scratch the very next morning? And ultimately, is adaptability to your AI the only real job security we have left?
That is something to seriously think about the next time you open up your AI assistant and marvel at how quickly it wrote that email for you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep experimenting, keep demanding that good friction, and whatever you do, don't let the digital sous chef bake a shoe. See you next time.